broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information on upcoming shows and topics.
Welcome back to another week of The Hunting Show. Thank you so much for tuning in again, and thank you to all of you who popped in and saw me at Flying Gun Hunting and Fishing in Taupo for Seeker Show weekend. There was about 9 or 10 of you that actually made the effort to introduce yourself to me, and it was a pleasure meeting some of the listeners of the show, which there are now tens of thousands around the world, and certainly most of those are in New Zealand. So it was great catching up with some of you and getting your feedback on the show, things that annoy you about me, but mostly things that you like listening to. And I got a great message from a guy called Philip Columbus. Thank you so much for sending me these emails, and I do like getting your emails, and I apologise to all of you that I don't read them out on the show or read parts of them out on the show. It really is a pleasure to get them, and please keep sending them via Facebook or definitely to info@thehuntingshow.co.nz. Philip just said a quick note to say thank you, your interviews are great, made me blush just slightly, and as a hunter that doesn't get to go out very often, he implies that the hunting show certainly helps get him that inspiration back, or give him the opportunity to probably fantasise about getting out and going hunting again. He listens to us 4 a.m. while he's milking the cows. Funny enough, Philip, lots of guys send me emails to say that they listen at that very, very time of the day, but generally they're on their way out hunting. I also got another great message from Philip Lowe, and he was thanking me for the show we did on Vortex Optics, and he picked up one of those just a month ago, and it was great to hear a little bit more about them. There has been some more announcements about Vortex in New Zealand, so please keep tuned to those. I'm not sure if they're meant to be made public yet, so I won't, but certainly the way we're able to buy Vortex Optics and who's importing them by the looks is changing. And a few of you said that you checked out that Vortex stand and said that you heard about it on the hunting show, and the guy from Vortex, or the guys from Vortex, actually let me know that a number of you went up, saw them at the stand and talked about the show. And please, wherever you are, if you get the chance to talk about the show, it's only going to build momentum and make it a whole lot better for everyone. This week's interview is from our very first show. We're returning after our very first show. It's Mr. Clyde Graf. How are you, mate?
Really good, thank you, Stephen.
Now, just for people that didn't hear you on our first show or don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about your history and your background?
Yep, sure. Okay. My brother and I, Steve's my brother, we started filming outdoors and hunting videos back in 1997. Our first little effort was called Hunting for a Living, and that, it was a classic, really. And then from there, we filmed probably another 5 hunting and outdoors DVDs of different types, including Roaring and Reds and Roaring Reds of the Rugged South. And then we delved into the poison area, 1080 poison area, back in about 2006, when there was an aerial drop undertaken in the Urewera National Park, which is sort of our turf. A small part of the park was being poisoned, and then the rest of the Whirinaki Forest Park. So we went in there and filmed it, and that was a shadow of doubt. And since then, we've done Poisoning Paradise and continuing to film the whole outdoors poisoning that's currently being undertaken and being increased right across the country up to this date.
Before we go into the 1080 issue, and we are going to cover that off on the show, I just want to know a little bit about some of those previous DVDs, because I have to say I've got, I think, all of them in my collection, and I particularly like Roaring and Reds. Do you get a lot of feedback about those DVDs? Because you've really done a great job.
Yeah, well, the thing with our DVDs is that we aren't behind a wire, or we aren't behind the back of Jimmy's farm with the big stags. We pride ourselves on sticking to public land only. If we've ever, which is only about twice in our DVDs, have we gone to private land, we've always stated this is private land. And to tell you the truth, we get a bit bored on private land when there's too many deer and too many animals. We actually like the tough going on public land. It's tough. It's hard work. But boy, when you get a response, and the stags aren't necessarily big monsters, but they're just beautiful wild stags. They're really tuned in, and they're really sensitive to sense, sight, all that stuff. Hearing, they're really sharp. and they're hard to get on camera, and we love it when we get a good sequence.
Something I'm surprised about, or I'm not surprised, but you're quite a humble guy, but that almost quite a few of the shows, if you go back through our archives, your name comes up time and time again as one of these great New Zealand icons of hunting. How does that feel, or do you even think of yourself that way?
No, I'm actually, that's the first good feedback I've heard, because normally, you see, we're in a hard position, Steve and I. We're in a real hard position. We don't want to be taking on these big boys like Department of Conservation and TB3. Those boys, they've got the big budgets. We don't want to take them on and have to go out there and film what's going wrong. You know, we don't want to have to do that, but we feel like we've got a responsibility because we can film the stuff out in the bush. We can go out there and do it without getting lost, and we can put it onto camera in a way that it's, you know, it's documented. But so we get a lot of bashing, you know, for that publicly. Department of Conservation and TB3, those boys, they'll attack us in public, and it goes beyond that as well. But that goes with the territory. It's nice to hear that there's a few out there that might think we're doing a good job, and no, we could never get sick of that, but it's a battle, you know.
I suppose where I was coming from there is it's not just the 1080 issue that you're known for. You're known for being one of those New Zealand icon hunters, and even interviews with the likes of Matt Willis about bow hunting, which I don't believe you are a bow hunter, but your name came up and he reckoned you'd be a great bow hunter, you know, just out of the blue. So your name must be synonymous with hunting.
Look, we did a DVD called A Quiver Full of Hope on, and it was on bow hunting, bush hunting, and bow hunting public land. Mostly you're aware of that was tough going. Again, it was a great challenge, and we'd only done bow hunting for 6 months or less. But it's a great sport as long as you place your arrow. It's a humane way to kill an animal if you have to do that, but you've got to place your shot. You've got to be more, astute and more careful. It's not just like pulling the trigger, And so, we've done a little bit of bow hunting, but there's some great bow hunters out there like Matt and those boys, and they know way more than we'll ever know about bow hunting.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one thing I would like to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've listened to a lot of what you have to say, and I've followed you certainly on the likes of Facebook, and kept a good eye on some of the media releases or media mentions of you. And some people have labelled you as a 1080 extremist. I actually find your views fairly balanced, to be honest. You seem to come somewhere the odd positive, but mostly negative stuff. But it seems to be you're not going into the very extreme. What's your take on that?
Well, we go out and we film stuff, right? And we don't. And we've always said we're not the hard out activists. We just film and document. When we go out to a poison drop and there's people protesting, we're not the ones there, being too aggressive. We just film. And that's what we do. That's how we like to stick. We don't like to get involved in the old down on the ground, rolling around in the mud stuff. But it's hard, once again, because as time goes on, I find myself getting more wrapped up in being it's controversial, if you like, because what winds me up is when I see these stories by Department of Conservation and these boys in the newspapers when they are bullshitting, when they're misleading the public over stuff. And that's what really winds us up. And the possum, they talk about the possum ratings and all this stuff. The possum isn't the big threat that people are led to believe. The possums actually does have some benefits in the forest, but those sort of things wind us up. But I try to hold my tongue. I'm in council now, so
I know.
Whatever I say to you now is not as a councillor. It's as Clyde, the outdoor filmer of stuff. But in council, it's hard too because you can get branded easily.
Just on politics in general, the Ban 1080 party got a little bit of momentum in the last election. The likes of Mike Downard, I think he likes to be called, really did start to get some coverage. And in some areas, they were polling close to the Greens. How do you think they went? What did you expect the outcome of that election was?
Yeah, look, those guys, I celebrate what they did. They had the balls to do something rather than just sit back and abuse and accuse and get on social media and attack someone. They actually went out there and gave it a shot. They they polled as well as Peter Dunn's party did.
Yeah.
They were new off the block. They didn't get any public advertising money or any of that. They used their own money, and good on them, and good on them for giving it a shot, because we always say, you know, we never say to someone, don't you do that and don't you do that. We always encourage everyone to do what they can in this battle, for example, against the 1080. Do what you can. Everyone has a different way of doing things. We do things with the camera. We bring it out and put it in the media. But other people have other ways of doing things. And these guys went out there and tried to do it with the vote and did very well, I think.
Just on the political side of things, has there been any developments recently about this issue, certainly from a political standpoint?
You mean with regard to 1080?
Mm.
Well, I don't really know what's happened beyond the election, whether the boys, in regard to the 1080 party, are still together or what's happening there. But I think there's a lot more traction taking place around the country now with the Department of Conservation increasing their drops. And I think there's people becoming more engaged, more irate, and offended by these drops. And as you know, we've had that recent clip regarding the trout.
Yeah, and that was actually my next point. The first thing I thought, and look, this particular show has never ever made public whether we're pro or anti-1080. Mm-hmm. We just let both sides of that fence have their voice.
Yep.
But the first thing I thought when I saw that article come up on TV News was that if I was a tourist and I'd just arrived here to fish these pristine waters here, and I heard that the reason I can't take the trout out of the river was because I could potentially have low-level poisoning, what message is that sending the world? But I'd like you to expand a little bit on what that story was about and what it means.
Yeah, well, it means a lot to me. To us, it means a lot, because this particular issue, it was only brought to light, if you like, because of the Fish and Game Wars with the Federated Anglers guys, who were pushing for a bit of a study into what happens when trout eat mice that have eaten 1080.
Right.
Now, that's all very good, and that was very good that they managed to get some action on that. And I think the Department of Conservation is surprised, I think, out to release it onto YouTube. But this will go into a few of the issues that have always been out there, and that is they're dropping these baits directly into the water. Now, what the heck do you do when you go down to Rotorua? You get a little bag of cereal bait and you feed it to the trout, and the trout come up and they love the stuff. Mm. Now, whether that happens in the wild, I don't know, but this poison's dropped at high rates right across the streams on all aerial drops. You've got carcasses ending up in the streams. You've got the eels getting to the carcasses. No one's cleaning up the carcasses, and the manufacturer's label says remove all carcasses from wherever and bury them and burn them. But no, not leave them, even in the water. Mm. You've got aquatic life. You've got kura or crayfish taking up those baits as soon as they hit the water. There's lots of species, wildlife that eat that stuff, including humans. Even kiwi will go through a creek and look for bits and pieces. Now, that's the unacceptable side of this. Why isn't Doc looking into all that stuff? And I'm not talking about how much it takes to kill you here. I'm talking about what about the low dose stuff to reproductive capabilities for wildlife as well. And they just ignore it. So I applaud these guys, these fishing guys that have pushed for the study, and now it's got a little bit of media attention. So as I said, I'm just releasing a clip now that's going to be highlighting just some of those issues, and I hope a lot of the people out there get to see it.
You talk a lot here about this low-dose poisoning, and it's something that comes up from time to time. And I think for a lot of our listeners, maybe even the overseas listeners, they don't understand, first of all, maybe what the effects of 1080 are, but particularly what the effects of low-dose poisoning can be.
Okay, well, the 1080 is known as a male reproductive toxin, which means it affects the reproductive ability of males and the ability to reproduce. Now, there hasn't been any studies done into the long-term impact on wildlife or humans in this regard. It's been ignored. And for example, we have a couple of scientists on Poisoning Paradise that point out that in regard to hormone disruptors, which is that sort of thing. Dr. Sean Weaver from Victoria University states that hormone disruptors can be effective in parts per trillion, not parts per billion, but per trillion. And he says that's like having a shot of gin and then diluting it with 660 milk tankers.
Gee.
To dilute it to 1 part per trillion. And he says this research shows that hormone disruptors can be effective at that rate. And yet it would take 10,000 lakes the size of Taupo to dilute New Zealand's annual use of 1080 to parts per trillion, 4 parts per trillion. So, we're dumping this poison across the forest without knowing what the heck we're doing. And these guys, like Department of Conservation, are ignoring these long-term impacts in what's going on in the forest. And to me, it's an outrage. And I just don't like doing what we're doing. Taking on this stuff. We're getting old, grumpy, and getting condemned for doing it. But it does need to come out because I actually like our outdoors. I like the wildlife, and I do like a few deer in the bush. And I think that everything's sustainable. The wildlife can handle it. The birds doing well, the few deer, a few possums, they all co-inhabit the forest very well. In the forests we know that have never had 1080, the bird life's really good. Go to the forests that have had repeated drops, and there's certain species missing, and there seems to be a degradation of, overall health of the forest.
But surely we've got to do something about keeping possum numbers down.
Surely you can, yeah. Like in the 80s, they were worth big money. People would do anything to get them because they were worth money. Now you can put money on gold, for example, and men will move a mountain. They'll dig a hole right through the Southern Alps if there was gold there and the money was right, and if they could get a resource consent. But so it's all about. It just has to be, worthwhile, that's all. And the possum numbers in New Zealand, for example, aren't that high, and the possum isn't the problem anyway. And the thing about this beach masting and rats, well, in my opinion, that's just a big exaggeration. They've been going on for years. There's been rats in New Zealand for over 700 years, and it's just an excuse to drop more poison. I think these people are trying to eradicate introduced mammals, but it's an impossible dream using 1080 poison, and all you'll be left with is introduced mammals. And you'll be wiping out your native wildlife. It's
interesting because I don't think some of the other research for future plausible alternatives to mass poisoning, like the Trojan Female Project that Otago University has done some research in now, and I don't know if you've looked into Professor Neil Gimmel's research down there, but these to me seem like things that the government should be jumping in, or DOC jumping in and really giving them the opportunity to work. Yet there doesn't seem biocontrol thing? Yeah, it is. It's basically you do some research on, but there are these things that are coming out of particularly our universities, and they don't seem to be getting a lot of traction. Yeah, from what I've heard, they've made some good inroads, if that's what we're talking about, the breeding capabilities of possums, etc. But the funding seems to be drying up a little bit from the feedback I've had, because they're getting close. I don't think these guys want an alternative to using 1080. I think they're going to need to be forced to use to end it, and I think that is going to come from international pressure, to be honest with you, because I think the majority of people in New Zealand are brainwashed to just think that what DOC are doing is such a great thing, and it's an outrage. And you believe that DOC is the one putting out this propaganda, or is it the other people potentially profiting from this industry? No, I think it starts, once again, this is my opinion, but I believe it is propaganda. I believe it's turned into a religion in this country. It goes right through universities. It goes right through even to scientific institutions. That now it's like there's this realm of a wave of ignorance that comes over anyone who is asked to look at this research and actually dig a little bit deeper. No, we have to be ignorant, and we just have to listen to all the propaganda and all this predetermined research and then just follow the money. Basically, the budget's with 1080, so why do we want to try and challenge it? If you challenge it as a scientist, you won't get any more work. So,
it's a vicious circle, and as I said, I think it needs to have international attention before we end up wiping out all our native species, or a big percentage of them.
Okay, so if we're going to try and be a little bit more balanced, is there any positives? That's a tough question, sorry, but is there any positives?
To doing what?
To 1080, is there any positives to the use of the poison?
Well, I don't know. You see, what happens is if you go to the lowest rate possible, where you're not killing too many native species, I think you'll reach a threshold where you're actually not having a big enough effect on the target species.
Right.
You know, if you can dump heaps of it across the forest, and you're going to kill a lot of species, and you'll kill natives as well. And then you say, well, we're going to drop it right down. But then you'll get to the point where you don't get enough of the targets, and, it'll have a negative effect. The trouble with 1080 is, and this is the research that is well proven now, and we're filming some stuff as well, is that when they drop 1080, rats are the first thing to come back, return, and they return in big numbers. They return in numbers bigger than if they didn't drop the poison at all. This is comparing to control box.
Right.
And this is being proven over and over again. And we've just filmed a guy who's doing a trap line for dock in a poisoned area. There was a drop in October. They got a knockdown just about of zero. They check the traps every 3 weeks. Then the rats started returning. This is just last October. And now at the latest check, they got 46 rats. And it's been increasing like that since. And there's only 80 traps. Now, what's interesting is they don't move the traps. They leave the traps and go back and check every 3 weeks. But the graph that we've got, we're following this trend, and the rats are coming back bigger and bigger every time they go back every 3 weeks. There's more rats. There's more rats than there was the week before, and you think you would have got them because you just trapped 46 last week out of that same area. See, the traps aren't being moved. It's fascinating.
What's your theory then? Why are the rats coming back in bigger numbers?
Well, the rats are the best breeders. They have multiple young a year. They had litters of the suckers, and they breed fast, and the stoats breed fast. Then what happens is a 10 drop comes in every 2 years, probably, to kill the rats, but the stoats aren't being killed at the rate stock is saying, and that's proven as well. So then the stoats switch to birds for diet, because there's no rats, and then you have this sort of double kill of birds, but then the rats recover very quickly, and it's just, I don't know, it's just the way it's proven in the studies. And Doc's claiming that they're doing all the stuff down in the South Island for beach masting, which is bullshit, because the guys, if you've seen in the news about the whitetail, about the drop down there, they went through and grid searched, and they got something like 4 whitetail, a few birds, maybe a few possums, and no rats. And that's meant to be that drop was to kill rats. Now, don't tell me that when 1080 kills rats, you don't find them, because you do. We've been in a lot of drops, and when there's rats about, you find them. Right. They're dead on the ground. When there's not many rats, you don't find them. It's the same with possums. And in this case, it's bullshit, you see. It's propaganda. Doc's been saying, well, we've got all these beach masting. Well, that's strange, because when these guys go down and grid search, they didn't find any rats. Right? So that's the facts.
Well, what next? So you've got to this point, and we're obviously your movement, or the anti-1080 lobby groups, are starting to get some real traction, not only online, but at the coalface where the drops are happening. What do you think's next?
Well, the only thing that's going to happen is that you have to have international pressure come on, and then you'll have what is it called, a royal commission, or some sort of a investigation externally of the country. Could be no connection to the country whatsoever. If that doesn't happen, what will happen is, as we've just heard, that the police get involved with these drops. Now, there was a guy that was protesting or something or other, we just heard down in Tiana way, and he was quite shocked because the police turned up on his doorstep the following day or whatever it was, and threatened him and said, do you want to lose your firearms license? And this guy was quite shaken about this, because all he was doing was have his right to protest. And the police turned up. And the same thing happened in the Coromandel. There was, a poison drop pending. some people wanted to go out and protest, which was their right. The police got involved before the drop and warned them not to even think about it. And we've interviewed a few of these people. And so the protest, you can't, you could say, well, it's just good policing, if you like, because they're trying to, preempt something. But, that's what it's going to get to. The police are going to step in more and more, and it's just going to get more and more ugly, I think.
Now, Clyde, just to move off that, and look, you're doing a great job. On behalf of your cause, I think that the work that you've done, particularly with the Poisoning Paradise DVD, which really, I think, was an eye-opener for a lot of people, I think you're doing a great job at pushing your own, not your own, but pushing the cause, and I wish you all the best. But back to being this legendary hunter, or... in the eyes of many, you must have some decent stories. Can you tell us about that one great hunting story, or your elevator speech when people ask you about a good hunting story?
You see, I'm not a storyteller. That's my problem. I'm not a storyteller, and some people are. They're very good at writing stories in books and things, and that's great. But I haven't got that skill. We've always, gone out and shown the video. We just go and let the camera do the talking. There was a funny time once back when we were meat hunting. Steve and I, we were up the back of the Manyaroha somewhere there, and we were, hanging out to get a deer. And we're on our way back, and we're coming down this ridge, and next time we both stopped. And, we said, look, there's a deer, And so we thought, and we both had rifles, because normally we'd only take one rifle, but we both had rifles. And so we said, look, okay, well, you take a shot just in case, you don't, either of us doesn't make the shot. Anyway, we both went up and then boom at the same time. And that's good, shot away. Carried on walking, but as we were walking in two different directions. He was going one way and I was going another. I said, what are you doing? It was over here. He said, well, it's over here. And it ended up that we'd shot two different deer instead of the same one we thought we were shooting at. But, for me, that's it for hunting. I don't shoot deer. I haven't shot a deer in probably 6 years now. I leave it up to Shorty or the old man to get the deer for the table. I just like photographing these days and filming. And I see too many poison deer. It makes me sick to see the poor things, the way they suffer. And I just don't have the heart to shoot the little suckers now. But, it's they're a beautiful animal, and I'd like to see that they're not, wiped off the face of this earth or the face of this country just because of the dreams of a few extreme people that are, not tolerant to having a little bit of wildlife. And to me, it's, evolution. This is evolution. They're here, these animals, we have to manage them, like you say, let's manage them. But they're here. We're not going to get rid of them without damaging native species. We just have to manage. So that's my message. Let's be sensible and manage what we've got, not destroy it with poison.
Now, if people want to find out more about your cause or find out more about you, where do they go?
Mm-hmm. Yes, good question. Forget the latest DVD, like the latest video clips and things. If you're online and you've got the internet, go to YouTube /the Graf Boys, and then just flick through our videos. The Graf Boys is TheGrafBoys. So it's like Steffi Graf, only one S. And tvwild.co.nz. Another good site to visit is 1080science.co.nz. And I think that's probably in thegrafboys.org, just for a few DVDs and things. But all we ask is for people just to, get both sides of the story and not just listen to the powerful guys with the big budgets. Don't just listen to that side of it. At least listen to what we've got to say too. We don't get paid to do what we do. It's hard. It's a struggle. It's hard to pay the bills, but we do it. And yet the other guys that we're fighting, they're all on big money. They're all on good money to get, to put out their message. It's a battle. But thanks for the opportunity, Stephen. And all the best with your show.
Oh, thanks very much. And look, let's catch up again in a few months' time. I mean, let's make this a regular thing. You're always you're a pleasure to have on, and you're very, very approachable. And thank you again for your time.
You're welcome, and good evening to all the listeners.
Now, we've got one of the books from last week's show, Peter Ryan's book, Wild South. And if you'd like to win that, all you need to do is keep an eye on our Facebook page. All you need to do is go to www.facebook.com/The Hunting Show. We're going to give away that. I'm going to finish reading it first, so sorry if there's the odd bent page. But he's signed that for us and sent it to me, and that book will be given away very, very soon. Keep an eye on that Facebook page, and I've just started hooking into it, and so far, very, very good read. Thank you very much, Pete. I hope you're listening to the show. And we've got some great things coming up in the next few weeks. And sorry about tonight's show being a little bit late. Those of you that do tune in 5:30 on Mondays, I forgot about daylight savings. My bad. I knew about it. I've been working today. But with regards to setting up an interview and organising Clyde, completely my fault. Remember, guys, good hunting.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is the